Hey guys, welcome to a brand new video, and this video is outside. I'm actually just now going to switch what I'm going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the Medusa clone, and I'm only outside because I promised you guys that the next time you saw this guy on the channel, it would be outside in the beautiful sparkling sun. Actually now I have a proper sound test. Right, it does sound much better than in the unboxing video, although I believe I did add that disclaimer to the unboxing video, so there is that. Yeah, and overall, this thing has been doing really well. I think the stock hardware isn't fantastic. I put some arm sharp rep screws, so the arm sharp screws do fit in here, which means that basically standard hardware should fit. However, the sex bolts are, like the female sex bolts, are a little bit thinner, I think, than the normal size. So maybe those need a change out or need to be custom, but I just have the stock ones in here. Because the hardware, one thing I noticed, isn't fantastic. It's not terrible, but it's not fantastic. I also don't like Loctiting my balisongs. So that's why, but I imagine if you Loctited it, you'd be fine, no issues. Yeah, this is really giving me Chab vibes in terms of it's really durable titanium, and this is the, I don't know if you can see that, yeah, you can. This is the thing that has been giving me a lot of questions about this guy. Obviously, this thing claims to be S35VN steel. And when I first saw that, I was like, no way that can be S35VN steel, right? But, whereas I can't say for sure it is S35VN, I can definitely tell you it's not the cheap D2 or some of the other steels that they use for cheap clones. And this is for two reasons. One, I have my Serif, and I even have my, I did have my Cygnus. And the blade properties of S35VN were always a bit interesting in terms of how they flipped, and when the bite handle would kind of touch you, or when you would interact with the bite with the bite side of the blade, the sharp side, it always felt a little just different to some of the clones I've seen, right? I don't know if that's just necessarily edge geometry or what. Obviously that's very important, more important than the steel itself. But I got the similar feeling when kind of doing this. I'm not sure how to describe it. I'll probably go into another video about that more in depth. But basically, for example, my Serif, even when it's really sharp, doesn't feel crazy sharp. Same thing with the Cygnus, it doesn't feel super sharp. Obviously, they are very sharp in terms of, they can cut you very easily, but, hi horn. They don't have this crazy, like the clones. The clones feel like they're going to like demolish your skin as soon as you touch it, right? The DT that they use for that. Maybe because the edges are, very thin, and the steel is quite soft. So maybe it's that, but, I get that same feeling from this. And also, with the clone blades, right, with the cheap steels, cutting paper is enough to kind of dull them, right? However, I've been putting this through some pretty, I wouldn't say brutal cutting tests, because I've not been going on stuff, but I did do my whole foam box with this guy, right, in terms of that's the knife I was using to cut foam. Foam is a pretty big killer of blades, right? Foam, styrofoam, stuff like that. That's a pretty big duller of like the cheap blade steels. And I also did, I've done endless cutting tests on paper, and it's still just as sharp as when I got it. So whatever steel they are using for this, if it is S35VN, I'm still doubtful that it is for the price. But whatever steel they are using, it is definitely better than the cheap steels that most clones use. So honestly, I think this might make a better EDC knife than the one chap. Do I think it flips better? Honestly, I don't remember enough to tell you. But I think if you want something that's a bit beefier, right, it's got 2 less screws than the chap, 3 less screws than the chap, I guess, because the chap also has a latch. So that's the one thing you trade off, a latch, which for people who EDC, a latch might be important. But you're trading off a latch for press fit Zempins. And yeah, I'd say the Chab probably wins in terms of having nicer hardware from stock, so you wouldn't need to change out the hardware. However, if you wanted to really beat this as an EDC, I would say swap out the hardware, just your standard size male screws. I'm not sure about the females. But if you change out the hardware on this guy, and you Loctite it, this blade is much more durable than a Chab blade. I can tell you that for sure, 100%. Better than basically any of the one blade. Maybe the Tsunami, but even the Tsunami, well, then again, I'm not really sure about the Tsunami. I never really torture tested that one. Or did much cutting with it other than like boxes and stuff. But this thing really holds its edge. Like, it's still razor sharp. It will still cut like a crisp packet, like a thin ones. Those of you in Europe, you'll understand what I mean by the thin ones. I find the crisp bags in, or chip bags, bag of chips, in America are much thicker anyways, than the ones we have here. But it will still cut through one of those, like no problem. Like even the flimsy ones, obviously paper, it'll go through easily. And that's across basically the entire geometry of the blade. So I'm very, very impressed with the blade steel here. Obviously, the flipping in comparison to an actual Medusa, really no clue. But I will, and obviously the blade isn't like super accurate in terms of how it is, but I do think that this is a fantastic EDC knife. It is pretty hefty, but honestly, you get used to it. Obviously, yikes, it's so cold out here, man. I cannot flip, so sorry for the lack of flipping in this video, but as an EDC knife, this thing is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, grade 5 titanium. It's got this interesting glossy finish. I mean, you can take a look at it in the sun, how it sparkles nicely. And so, yeah, honestly, it is a beautiful finish. It has this nice gloss that I'm not sure about it too much. I kind of do wish I gotten the raw version. The raw version would have been much more desirable for me to have gotten. But yeah, there are some very nice things on this guy that I do really recommend it. The grip is better than the Chab in terms of on the faces, right? This is really, really grippy here, this front bit. The sides is about the same, but there is jimping. And this jimping does actually work. It does actually make a noticeable difference. It's not ridiculous, but it's better than some others, you know. It's definitely better than some others in terms of its jimping quality. So honestly, I think if you want an EDC knife, I think it is a little more expensive than the Chab. No, I'm fairly certain, actually, yeah. If you do want something that's a bit more expensive than the Chab, has a trainer blade that's actually a bit more balanced than the Chabs. So if you want like a trainer EDC kind of beta, I do think this might be the new beta king. I'm not saying it's the king of clones, because I do think the Chab gives you a bit better of a experience from the standpoint of you get the latch, you get spare hardware, the stock hardware is actually all right. So I think that the Chab would still remain kind of king of clones tied with the Tsunami, the one Tsunami. And obviously, we're talking about live blades here strictly. I know that the Arm Shark Tsunami is also kind of basically the king of trainers. But I still think the Chab and the one Tsunami would still kind of outbeat this just in terms of the extra stuff that you get with it. But I think purely as an EDC knife, I think this might beat it. I know it's a little more expensive, but the sound is honestly, in my opinion, much more tolerable. Some people might prefer the crazy ring of the Chab, but the ring on this, it's much more subtle, and if you crank your screws down, I don't have them fully cranked, the ring on this is much nicer, in my opinion. It's not as crazy loud. You can flip this at nighttime. It's got a similar heft to it, but it's also a bit more substantial in the hands. So, you know, you're using gloves or something, you could really use this as like a proper knife. But I do have to make a big disclaimer, guys. Do not carry these for your self-defense, right? Balisongs are not for your self-defense. They are not for attacking people. They are not even for good protection, right? They are pretty bad in terms of as a weapon. So please do not be carrying these around as any sort of self-defense tool or weaponry. Really, that's not what they're designed for. I know a lot of the community is fairly young, especially the newer ones who are getting into the hobby as it grows. Please check up on your local laws if you're even allowed to own or carry live blade balisongs. And even trainers, don't go carrying them around if balisong. Honestly, just don't go carrying trainers around, really. Unless you have something like a squiddy, which is okay to flip in public, it's still not advice. Don't take these to school, don't do stuff like that, right? I just kind of feel like, obviously talking about EDCing a knife, like this especially, you know, if you get caught with one of these in most of the world, you're probably going to be in a fair bit of trouble, especially depending on your age bracket. So please be careful when kind of thinking about, oh, dude, let me show you off my balisong or whatever, right? Like, I'm not going to treat you guys as idiots, but please use some common sense. Don't do anything ridiculous. Make sure you're clued up on your local laws and what can be used as an intimidating weapon, right? Because, for example, this paving stone here in the UK, if I threaten anyone with this, that's the same treatment as having basically any other weapon, right? So really be careful with these kinds of things. I don't really carry balisongs around. I'll maybe have one in my pocket just for flipping in like personal spaces, but I do not go flipping around in public in terms of like, you know, in the middle of the town centre. Oh yeah, let me just, but yeah, just had to make that disclaimer out there because I don't want to be held liable for any people being like, yo, this is an EDC knife, let me every day carry it around, and then you get in a fight or something like that. Obviously, you know, the real world happens. But back to the more slightly happier side of the video. I do think this might be the new EDC champion, simply because of the blade steel. Honestly, most people don't mind. I mean, most people EDCing their knives probably don't mind having to sharpen their knife, but they don't want to be sharpening it all the time. I think this might honestly be the answer to that, because the Chab, as fantastic of an EDC knife as it would be, or a beater knife, right, to actually carry on using chopping, the blade steel was fairly soft. It gets dull kind of quickly. And also the blade steel geometry wasn't fantastic for cutting. This I find is really, really good for actually doing cuts. It's, you know, that's the profile right there. The blade profile is honestly fantastic for cutting stuff. I really didn't find that the alt blade on the Chab really did it. I found the blade, like this bit here, the grind on the blade where it goes down to the edge, was a bit too wide. The angle was a bit too large, whereas it's a much smaller angle here. And so I just find the edge geometry and the actual just blade geometry of the Medusa clone here is just much more suited to knife tasks. And so yeah, that's my overall opinion. If you can get one of these, go ahead and grab one. There'll be a link in the description to pick one of these guys up. You know, it's an affiliate code, so you'll be supporting the channel and getting yourself a cool knife. I think that's a pretty okay way to kind of do stuff where you don't have to directly support the channel in terms of giving me financial aid, but you can kind of indirectly support it by getting yourself some nice things just by using my link. So please do that in below. I'm not sponsored to say that or anything. I'm just an AliExpress affiliate. So that's kind of the story of that. I'm going to get inside because it is way too cold out here to be doing this. My head hurts already from the cold. Well, that's a lie. My ears hurt from the cold. And I will catch you guys in the next video. So like, comment, subscribe if you gained anything useful from this video, or if you just like watching the video, you know? I mean, pretty knife, pretty sun. It's just pretty cool, pretty cool. But yeah, that's going to be it for this video today. The sky is empty with clouds. And there's not a single, well, there's a few clouds over there. But yeah, thank you guys for watching so much, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.